you beautiful bastards? Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, you daily dive into the news. As you can tell, I'm doing a little bit of a road show, which I'll explain in the coming weeks, but we got a lot of news to talk about today, so let's just jump into it.
Starting with...
Can you play a game with me really quick?
Are you proposing?
Yes, I'm proposing again. So we were just on a flight. I need to know from you, flight etiquette. I know that we
can recline your seat.
Okay, well, we're going to get there. Okay, according to a survey, we get my Steve Harvey on. Not really. Is it acceptable or not acceptable to ask to switch seats with another passenger?
You can always ask. You can't get mad when they say no.
51% agree that it's acceptable. 26% say it is unacceptable. Chatting with a stranger next to you the entire flight.
No, unacceptable.
Ooh, you are surprisingly in the minority. 46% find it acceptable, 29% unacceptable.
These are all chatty people who took this poll.
Putting your purse or your jacket in an overhead compartment on a full flight.
No, absolutely not.
52% find it acceptable. But the number one question that everyone talks about, reclining seats, is it acceptable or unacceptable?
It is acceptable because you are purchasing the seat and the area that the seat occupies, right? You're not purchasing the space in front of you.
Yeah, okay.
Purchasing the seat, you can lean back. Also, I have a back fracture. I'm allowed to do this.
I get special treatment.
Everybody should be allowed to recline their seat. And I think it's...
Yes.
You are purchasing the seat space. You are not purchasing the seat in front of you. You're not purchasing that space in front of you. I know it sounds insane, but that's what it is.
Reclining on a plane, I think it is very much like having the right argument. It's how you do it. If you smack that thing, if you just, you crank it, I've literally gotten hit in the head before because someone was like, I'm going to go from my full distance.
Put your head at the chair.
Because I was looking, it's for something in my bag. Yeah. Always.
You should put it up if at mealtime, if they like bring around, because the tray, I don't, but I should.
Is making a phone call okay?
No.
37% okay. It's actually been going in a positive
I
direction.
think making a phone call is fine, but having a conversation where it's just like casual, I think is a little bit rude.
Yeah.
But like if you need to be like, hey, let me buy, or hey, I'm gonna call you when I land.
When I was on the plane yesterday and there was like a parade of 11 people that went to the bathroom and I just could not get to the restroom, and I was like, it's a fucking parade. Did I say that low enough that it was just a conversation between you or me, or did I bring the whole cabin into that conversation?
We brought everybody in.
What?
Sorry, somebody's calling me on my...
And go.
So
Thank you for being...
I love you. But you can recline your seat.
Now you know. And then we need to talk about why Elon Musk just threatened to ban Apple products at his companies and why we're seeing the reaction we're seeing. Because this is happening after Apple announced sweeping changes, including new AI features at their World Developer Conference, right? WDC. Oh, they announced a lot of changes, including ones that are all about customization options for your iPhone and iPad and the ability to finally text Android users properly. Although Apple is still petty because despite no real difference in functionality between messaging iPhone users and Android ones, there'll still be green bubbles. Right, but what Musk fixated on with his announcement was that Apple was going all in on AI, right? Both with Apple Intelligence and then working with OpenAI. Right? For Apple, this represents a major step forward in how AI is used at home and heavily expands not only on what Siri can understand and is capable of, but what its apps in general can do. In particular, there will be generative AI tools that can do things like summarize emails, write new ones, or even proofread what you're about to send. In the Photos department, it'll let you edit out people or make entirely new, albeit creepy as fuck emojis. But also notably, in the announcement, Apple said that they would be working with OpenAI to add ChatGPT features, leading Musk to then post memes and tweet, if Apple integrates OpenAI at the OS level, then Apple devices will be banned at my companies. That is an unacceptable security violation, and visitors will have to check their Apple devices at the door where they will be stored in a Faraday cage. Although notably, that's missing a lot of the details. Apple made it clear that the vast majority of AI uses will be powered by your device and your device only, with the data never leaving it. And in some cases where more power is needed to handle the request, it'll send that out to private servers run by Apple on Apple hardware. And when that happens, reportedly the data is anonymized and they can't read it or share it, with OpenAI seeming to be only involved in rare cases, like if you ask Siri a specific question it can't answer. And if that's the case, it'll then ask you if you want to send the question to ChatGPT, at which point it'll connect to OpenAI. With Apple promising the IP addresses of these requests that they would be obscured, and that OpenAI won't be storing any of the information unless you have a paid ChatGPT account and you choose to connect it to your device. But notably, Elon wasn't buying that, because he also tweeted, it's patently absurd that Apple isn't smart enough to make their own AI, yet is somehow capable of ensuring that OpenAI AI will protect your security and privacy. Apple has no clue what's actually going on once they hand your data over to OpenAI. They're selling you down the river. Say, Apple using the words protect your privacy while handing your data over to a third-party AI that they don't understand and can't themselves create is not protecting privacy at all. With all of that leading to Musk actually getting community noted for both of those posts, and creators who were at the event like Marques Brownlee responding with, I asked Tim Cook, he said Apple at no point sends any of your data to OpenAI without explicit user permission. But regardless, the reality is that all of this really hinges on whether Apple can keep good on their word, as well as its ability to ensure OpenAI adheres to its end of the bargain. Though Musk isn't confident about that and highlighted examples of OpenAI doing sketchy things, like when Scarlett Johansson told OpenAI not to use her voice, but they cloned it and used it anyway. Now imagine what they can do with your phone data, even if you don't allow them to use it. And finally, Musk was also unhappy with the argument that you need to agree to have your data sent to OpenAI because nobody actually reads the terms and conditions. And to be fair, I mean, he's probably right there. But again, at least for now on paper, there are projections in place to ensure that even if you accidentally accepted the terms and conditions, OpenAI couldn't just build a profile about you. And short of a massive security breach by Apple, OpenAI for sure can't just siphon your data away like Musk made it seem. Also, what's funny about all of this is that a lot of these features are things that Windows actually just recently announced as part of an update of its operating system, and people flipped, which has led to a lot of speculation that Apple went into so much detail about how it'll handle privacy because it didn't want to run into a similar controversy. But at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to whether you believe Apple or Elon more. And there, you have people pointing out on one hand, Apple has a long-standing history of trying to be privacy advocates, so much so that it routinely tells law enforcement that it won't help them break open phones and that they don't store user information so they have none to give away. Though on the other hand, OpenAI has done things to make people skeptical of them. But with that, people also noting that Elon's basing a lot of his claims on really nothing more than concern over OpenAI, and even more arguing he has a bias given his history with OpenAI and the fact that he runs his own AI. But with all that said, I gotta pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here? And then, a lot of people already see that a lot of the corporate support for Pride Month, a lot of it is very cynical, self-serving PR. This year, something that has been kind of standout is that people are having conversations not only about what they're seeing, but what they're not seeing. And to understand this conversation, or really even to have it, we have to look back to what happened last Pride Month. A long list of companies could actually serve as examples, but we're going to go with the two most notable being Bud Light and Target. Both companies came under fire from conservatives for supporting queer people. With Bud Light partnering with Dylan Mulvaney and Target putting out some pride displays, with then both companies taking a noticeable hit to their sales. People posting videos of themselves destroying beer cans and Target displays. And so now this year, you have people noting that both companies have scaled back their pro-LGBTQ marketing, in an effort to avoid a repeat of 2023. With Target limiting the number of stores where Pride merchandise will be sold, cutting back on the types of products that it sells, and making sure that the ones that it does sell are less provocative. So Pride-themed items for children, like onesies, those are gone. And as for Bud Light, you have people saying they haven't even mentioned Pride Month on social media, instead opting for ads with people like MMA fighter Dustin Poirier and NFL player Peyton Manning. Others noting that Nike, which also partnered with Mulvaney last year, hasn't posted anything about Pride yet. Others pointing to changes with North Face, Skittles, Calvin Klein. And so with all of this, you have experts noting that in previous years, companies try to stand out as the most progressive. But increasingly now, they're aiming to be quieter, more generic, and less political. Or in other words, they're looking for this Goldilocks zone where they're just kind of woke enough to tap into the progressive market, but not so woke that they lose the conservative market. Or the kind of stuff that could be plausibly considered pro-LGBTQ if you squint at it, but doesn't really raise an alarm if you're not paying attention. But that's not to say the pressure from the left and right are exactly the same. Right? In a survey of 200 corporate marketing executives, 18% said that the threat of conservative consumer backlash prompted them to change their Pride Month plans, whereas only 9% said the same about progressive consumers. So maybe the most important takeaway from the data is that over 3/4 of them said that they made no changes after 2023, suggesting that even despite the handful of corporations that have changed, so-called woke capitalism is still going strong, which isn't surprising given that the LGBTQ community holds an annual purchasing power of nearly $4 trillion, according to a corporate advisory firm. But even if most companies are sticking to their Pride marketing, all it takes is a few big brands flipping message the moment they can't take the heat to expose that all of them are just in it for the money. Which actually brings us to why Jon Stewart and The Daily Show are in the news today. Because last night, for 14 straight minutes, Jon Stewart absolutely ripped into the whole idea of corporate pride.
So they're very clearly conflicted between the high moral values that they think we want and the amoral values that serve their shareholders. So if I may address corporate America quickly in this moment. Stop. And by the way, for those on the right who wish corporations would just ditch the woke performances and go back to good old-fashioned patriotic values, that's all too. Let's stop pretending that a corporation can even be woke or unwoke or patriotic or unpatriotic. Let's just let corporations live their truth as the profit-seeking Patrick Bateman psychopaths they are.
So as expected, there have been a lot of thoughts and opinions here, and so I want to extend that to you. What are yours? And then, y'all, as my kids get older, different things become even more fun to do with them. And thanks to the sponsor of today's show, KiwiCo, I've actually found that projects are one of them. I mean, seriously, we've been using these for years, and I see my kids' brains functioning differently as they get older. Really getting intrigued about how things work together, how they function. I mean, it's cool. And their crates are designed to teach kids about educational concepts like engineering, science, art, and math. And importantly, all while having fun. And they're really great for summer months to keep their brains active. Now, KiwiCo offers subscriptions for all ages, but they also offer one-off crates in their KiwiCo store, from robots to ice cream making and more. Each crate's designed by experts, tested by kids, and KiwiCo includes everything you need, plus a kid-friendly magazine empowering them to complete the projects on their own and dive deeper into the subject. And at home here, we love how it provides hours of entertainment for the kids, and it provides opportunities for special moments with them while doing projects together, or like actually recently watching them just take over. And KiwiCo works really hard to create these awesome moments, so it's really a gift that keeps on giving. So definitely head on over to kiwico.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco to get 50% off your first crate of a monthly subscription. And then Hunter Biden is guilty. That's what a jury just decided, convicting him on 2 felony counts of lying while filling out paperwork to buy a gun back in 2018, with Hunter claiming in that paperwork that he wasn't using illegal drugs at the time. And the jury also convicting him on a 3rd felony count of possessing that gun for 11 days while on those drugs. And notably, these convictions carrying a combined maximum sentence of up to 25 years. And while Hunter's lawyers have spent the last week arguing that prosecutors failed to prove he knowingly lied on those federal forms, instead saying he wasn't actively abusing drugs when he bought the gun, Assistant Special Counsel Leo Wise said in a closing statement this morning, the evidence was personal, it was ugly, and it was overwhelming, adding that photos, texts, and testimony around Hunter's addiction may provoke disgust or sympathy or both, but the defendant wasn't charged with being an addict, saying lying to buy that gun is a choice, and that is why we're here. Now, notably, these crimes all happened before Joe Biden was elected to be president and don't actually involve him. But come on, 1, it's an election year, and 2, this is politics. Joe Biden's getting dragged into the middle of this one way or another. But for 1, a number of Republicans probably want to draw attention away from the 34 felonies Trump just got in the Stormy Daniels hush money case. In fact, just this morning, we saw Representative James Comer saying, today's verdict is a step toward accountability. But until the Department of Justice investigates everyone involved in the Biden's corrupt influence peddling schemes that generated over $18 million in foreign payments to the Biden family, it will be clear department officials continue to cover for the big guy, Joe Biden. This, as even Matt Gaetz, of all people, saying, the Hunter Biden gun conviction is kind of dumb, to be honest. Notably, this is still the first time that someone from a president's immediate family has been convicted of a crime while the president's in office, which has also had some wondering if Joe Biden might try to pardon Hunter. But last week, Joe actually shot down that speculation, telling ABC he would accept the outcome either way, and him giving just a very general statement this morning saying he'll always be a father to Hunter, talking about family and addiction recovery, and adding, we are so proud of the man he is today. But as far as what happens next here, 1, we're gonna have to wait for the sentencing, but then also 2, his legal troubles aren't over because he has to stand trial for another case in September, right? And that one being in LA for failing to pay $1.4 million in income taxes, with him facing 3 felony charges as well as 6 misdemeanors. And then Justice Samuel Alito and his wife, Martha Ann, are back in the news again. And this time it's because of recent secret recordings of the two, as well as Chief Justice John Roberts now being released, with those recordings being taken by liberal activist and documentary filmmaker Lauren Windsor, who had posed as an anti-abortion conservative supportive of the Alitos, with her then uploading clips of her conversations on X yesterday. And in the conversation with Alito, which was taken at this year's annual gala for the Supreme Court Historical Society, Windsor can be heard approaching the justice, complimenting his work, and then talking about polarization and the need to return America to a place of godliness.
Considering everything that's been going on in the past year, as a Catholic and as someone who really cherishes my faith, I don't know that we can negotiate with the left in the way that needs to happen for the polarization to end. I think that it's a matter of winning.
I think you're probably right. I think one side or the other is going to win. I don't know. There can be a way of working, a way of living together peacefully, but it's difficult, because there are differences on fundamental things that really can't be compromised. Really can't be compromised. So it's not like we're going to split the difference.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that the solution really is winning the moral argument. Like, people in this country who believe in God have got to keep fighting for that, to return our country to a place of godliness.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And Windsor also stitched in a clip from the gala the year before, right, where she recorded herself talking to Alito about his opinion overturning Roe getting leaked and how the court hadn't publicly identified anyone responsible. You know, Alito says the court did its best, but it doesn't have the same investigatory powers as Congress or the federal government. Windsor continues by arguing that we're in a period of turmoil where people don't trust the court, asking how we can get America back to a place of less polarization, with him responding,
I wish I knew. I don't know. It's easy to blame the media, but I do blame them because they do nothing but criticize us. And so they have really eroded trust in the court.
Right, and Martha Ann also took aim at the media in her conversation with Windsor, with the justice's wife saying she would go after the journalists and implying she might bring defamation suits after Windsor approached her and offered support.
I'm a huge fan of your husband, and everything that you're going through, I just want to tell you that, like,
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not okay, though. It's not okay.
It's okay. It's okay because if they come back to me, I'll get them. I'm going to be liberated, and I'm going to get them.
What do you mean by
Oh, well,
they?
there's a 5-year defamation statute of limitations.
But I don't know what you mean by they, like, by the media. Oh, okay.
Come on, I'll get you. Come on.
They also discussed the flag debacles, right, where Martha Ann flew 2 flags that have come to be associated with the Stop Steal movement outside 2 of the couple's homes.
I mean, like, the whole, like, appeal to have heaven flag was, like, right?
Right, but that's, the other thing is the fem-Nazis believe that he should control me.
Yeah.
So you go to hell. He never controls me.
They're then going on to offer this little tidbit when Windsor said that people were persecuting Martha Ann for the flags.
They're persecuting you, and you're, like, a convenient stand-in for anybody who's religious.
Look at me. I'm German. I'm German. My heritage is German. You come after me, I'm going to give it back to you.
And notably here, she didn't offer any more explanation. But in general, you had a number of people saying that was a weird vibe to say, I'm German, I'll go after you, given, the history of when Germans went after people. With Martha Ann also going on to share, let's say, interesting thoughts on the pride flag when Windsor mentioned bringing America back to a more godly place.
You know what I want? I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across the lagoon at the pride flag for the next month.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, please don't put up a flag. I said, I won't do it because I'm deferring to you. But when you are free of this nonsense, I'm putting it up, and I'm going to send them a message every day. Maybe every week I'll be changing the flags. There'll be all kinds. I made a flag in my head. This is how I satisfy myself. I made a flag. It's white, and it's yellow and orange flames around it, and in the middle is the word vergogna. Vergogna in Italian means shame. Vergogna, Vergogna, Vergogna. Shame, shame, shame on you.
Right, so that was the Alitos, but Windsor's conversation with Chief Justice Roberts, which also was at this year's gala, has gotten a lot of attention, with Windsor asking him similar questions about political polarization, to which he responds by noting other points in history that were super tumultuous, right, saying this isn't the first time that the court has found itself in the middle of all that, and he doesn't think that the polarization is so extreme that it can't be repaired. Roberts' comments also differed drastically from Justice Alito's in regards to religion, with him pushing back on many of Windsor's assertions.
But you don't think there's, like, a role for the court in, like, guiding us toward a more moral path?
No, I think the role for the court is deciding the cases. If I start, would you want me to be in charge of guiding us toward a more moral path? That's for the people we elect. That's not for lawyers.
Well, I guess I believe that the founders who are godly, like, we're Christians, and I think that we live in a Christian nation, and that our Supreme Court should be guiding us in that path.
Yeah, I don't know that we live in a Christian nation. I know a lot of Jewish and Muslim friends who would say maybe not. And it's not our job to do that.
And with all this, we've also seen a number of people reacting to this by condemning Windsor for pretending to be someone else and secretly recording these powerful people. With, for example, some journalism ethics experts raising questions about her tactics, arguing that they're not justified and drawing parallels to methods used by Project Veritas. With that, we saw Windsor hit back, arguing that it was justified in telling reporters, we have a court that has refused to submit to any accountability whatsoever. They are shrouded in secrecy. I don't know how, other than going undercover, I would have been able to get answers to these questions. questions. And then separate from the ethical questions here, I mean, the reality is that this information is out there now. And so part of what we've seen here is that it's generated a ton of backlash, especially for the Alitos. Right? Many calling for Alito to be impeached, saying he admitted a lack of impartiality and promoted Christian nationalist ideals. Others saying both Alitos are a threat to America and democracy and shouldn't be near power. And of course, plenty of other folks just saying this once again proves a need for sweeping ethics reforms and accountability for the Supreme Court. But for now, that's where we are, and we're gonna have to wait to see what happens from here.
And then, summer is upon us, and wouldn't it be nice to make the most out of backyard barbecues, graduations, vacations, weddings, birthdays, Friday nights? I could go on, but to just have a few drinks without feeling not great the next day. Because nobody wants to feel not so great after enjoying a few, especially when you have kids. Well, thanks to the fantastic sponsor of today's show, ZBiotics, they've got you covered. Right? ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Because when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut, and that byproduct is a big reason why you feel so rough the next morning. But ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down, right? It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut, where you need it most. Just drink ZBiotics before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. Right? This little bottle has helped me to be able to, be me after a night out. Right? I use it here and there, but it's my trivia night go-to. Plus, the 4th of July weekend is coming, so stock up on pre-alcohol now and help yourself out with next day responsibilities. Just go to zbiotics.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco to get 15% off your first order. That's zbiotics.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco at checkout for 15% off. And thanks ZBiotics for sponsoring this show.
And then let's talk about this batch of requested quickie news. Starting with the fact that King Charles just had his first portrait as king vandalized. Right, that portrait that made a ton of headlines because it was just so aggressively red. But now we're seeing animal rights activists keeping the conversation going by pasting a picture of Wallace from Wallace and Gromit over the face of the king. Which in their defense, for some reason that Wallace image actually looks more like King Charles than the actual portrait. So notably, they did not do this for accuracy's sake, right? The group responsible is called Animal Rising. And in addition to putting Wallace's face over the king, they also included a speech bubble that said, "No cheese, Gromit. Look at all this cruelty on RSPCA farms." Right in there, calling out allegations of cruelty on farms assured by the Royal Society for the Protection of Animals, which is a charity that King Charles is the patron of. And per CNN, the RSPCA's Assured Farm Scheme is meant to guarantee welfare standards and promise that animals are given a better quality of life. But Animal Rising released a report on Sunday finding cruelty and suffering at 45 of those farms across the UK. With them saying there were dying animals left in walkways, salmon were eaten alive by sea lice. As far as why they chose a Wallace and Gromit reference, well, Charles is apparently a massive fan of those movies, with one of the activists involved saying, even though we hope this is amusing to His Majesty, we also call on him to seriously reconsider if he wants to be associated with the awful suffering across farms being endorsed by the RSPCA. With Animal Rising also saying they stuck the images onto the painting safely using a water spray, and the gallery hosting the portrait confirmed to BBC News that it wasn't harmed. But still, the RSPCA condemned the stunt and added to the BBC, "We remain confident that our RSPCA Assured scheme is the best way to help farmed animals right now, while campaigning to change their lives in the future." Then we should definitely hop overseas to Cyprus, and that's because a YouTuber there by the name of Phidias, he's actually been elected to be an independent MEP in the European Parliament, with some outlets calling him a prankster, a Mr. Beast wannabe, or just saying he's known for generally bizarre stunts. Right? Things like spending months trying to get Elon Musk to hug him, also hugging Mr. Beast and getting buried alive. He also faced a good amount of backlash for trying to travel around Japan without paying transit fares. But now he's got a big boy job. But BBC News reporting that even though he has no political experience, he got the third largest number of votes with nearly 20%. And he'll be one of the 6 elected MEPs from Cyprus. And unsurprisingly, the reason he did so well is he did incredibly well among young voters, especially those aged 18 to 24. And this, even though he previously said he had never actually voted himself and also was not intending to actually win the race. So he just wanted to get young people involved in politics. But some outlets calling his election a shock and a miracle. Though more importantly, it is a sign for leaders to modernize and listen to young people. But then finally, for this section, we should talk about the Young Thug racketeering trial, with Young Thug's lawyer actually having to spend several weekends behind bars after being held in contempt. There's a lot of finger pointing here, so let's break it down, and I'll start with a refresher. Young Thug and his associates are accused of being a part of a criminal street gang responsible for violent crimes, with authorities alleging Young Thug himself was the leader. As for what happened with his lawyer, the Washington Post had a great breakdown. So during the trial yesterday, Young Thug's attorney, Brian Steele, said that the judge and prosecutors had an improper private meeting with a witness in the case, claiming that this meeting influenced the witness to testify because he was told he would be jailed if he did not cooperate, and Steele arguing arguing that this was coercion and that he and the defense should have been involved in the meeting. When the judge asked where Steele got this information, Steele refused to say, citing client protections, and this is where things got super sticky.
But I need you to tell me how you got the information. If you don't tell me how you got the information, I'm going to hold you in contempt. This is so sacrosanct to have a conversation in my chambers parroted to you and others. It is that serious.
Yeah. And that's why I raised it. It is that serious that we should have been there.
You got some information that you shouldn't have gotten.
You're not supposed to have communication with a witness who's been sworn.
I mean, those are just snippets of their back and forth. They went on for quite a bit. But all of this leading to the judge holding Steele in contempt and later sentencing him to 20 days in jail, which will have to be served on weekends starting this Friday. Now, Steele and other defense attorneys called for a mistrial, though prosecutors denied wrongdoing, and the judge said that there was nothing improper about the meeting at the center of this whole thing. But as he was escorted out of the courtroom, Steele told the judge that this would impact Young Thug.
You were removing me against his will, my will. You're taking away his right to counsel.
It's also worth noting here that he was later allowed back in the courtroom for the rest of the day's proceedings. When he did request that he'd be able to spend his jail time in the same facility as Young Thug to help him prepare, the judge seemed open to it. And so with this, you have outlets like the Atlanta Journal-Constitution noting the situation has just shocked attorneys in the city, and Steele's wife, who's also an attorney, is appealing her husband's criminal contempt finding. You also had another lawyer telling Fox 5 Atlanta that the whole thing's complicated, saying if a judge asks a question, you've got to answer, but then adding at the same time, Mr. Steele had a right to attorney-client privilege, so what is an attorney to do? But for now, that's where we are, and we're gonna have to wait to see what happens from here. And then, buying a home in the US is expensive. And so understandably, it's something that more and more Americans are feeling is out of reach as we're seeing home prices skyrocket. And unfortunately, I'm here to just crush those dreams even further today because it ends up that it's not just the prices of homes that continue to skyrocket, but also the cost of just maintaining one. According to findings from Bankrate, the price of homeownership has gone up 26% since the start of 2020 to $18,118 a year. And to be very clear, that does not include the cost of a mortgage. Instead, that number includes things like property taxes and insurance premiums. It could also be argued that many lenders roll property taxes and insurance premiums into your monthly payment, so that number is slightly misleading, which is why those numbers also include maintenance, gas, electricity, cable, internet, all of which have gone up on average. And for a while there, inflation was largely blamed for a lot of these price hikes, but the issue is that the 26% hike outpaces inflation, especially when you consider that inflation has returned to, quote, normal levels. Although new data will be coming out very soon, and there are some concerns we'll still see it higher than where the Fed wants it to be. Right? They're shooting for a 2%. And some think that in order to do that, interest rates will need to be cut, which is actually another thing that a lot of people miss when just looking at home prices. Because not only are they on the rise in general, but the cost to even borrow the money, it's skyrocketed. Right? Currently, it's between 6.5 and 7.5%, depending on factors, which is way, way higher than the nearly 2% it was at a few years ago. I mean, just to do some napkin math, that'll show you the difference that the 4.5% makes. The average American home is $490,000. At let's say 7%, that's like $3,260 a month. But if you go back to June of 2021, $490,000 home would have cost like $2,200 a month and likely have been a bigger, better home. Which is why I'm not going to ask you do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing? And instead, I'm just going to open up my comment section for venting. Get the anger you have about this out. It can be cathartic. I love you. But that, my friends, is where your Tuesday evening, Wednesday morning show is going to end today. I'll be back in the regular studio tomorrow, and without a doubt, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So I'll see you then.